I recently spent some time, more time than I usually get a chance to, with Genpo, my teacher, Genpo Roshi, and we talked about things, and he's doing some very interesting things. But I have said this to you before, and our discussion brought it up again for me, and I can't say it enough, probably. For what you're trying to do, and I'm going to highlight part of that tonight. The part that we did, Roshi and I, we trained the same way. We talked about it. We did everything. Our regrets are not about the things that were too hard. They're about the things that were too easy. There's nothing that we did that was too hard, or we inconvenienced ourselves too much, took too much time, were in too much pain, emotionally and physically. I had too much discomfort. We went too much out of our way. We don't regret any of that. None of us who did that regret that part. We regret the parts that we didn't do enough of, and therefore feel not solid enough in, because there wasn't enough work in that area. Now, fortunately, I got a little lucky with that, so did he, which is that when Genpo became a teacher, his teacher was still around, his teachers even were still around, and so whatever wasn't covered during that, they made him suffer afterwards. And the same has happened to me. So whatever there was, like a weak spot or whatever. So actually, he said to me, when I said to him, we were talking about this, I said to him, so I don't regret it in any way what was hard. He said, well, I could still make it way too hard. But he winked at me, which is good. So I want you to get that message. One of the things that we're trying to do, that I don't cover so much, and I'm going to tonight, is when people set out, in Zen particularly, they set out for this thing called enlightenment, or realization, which was understanding the true nature of the self. And that requires some effort. It requires a long time sitting, and it requires effort of various sorts. You're trying to see something deep. And what you're trying to see is not in a way that you've seen things before. It is not by the acquisition of information. It is by not using the part of the mind that acquires information and using another part altogether. And that is hard because it's a training, not a learning. You're training your mind to work a different way. Some of you are on the koan mu, which is a very important place to be. And it is very important that you really see mu clearly. It's very hard. You will over and over again try to figure out mu. Mu can't be figured out. You're learning a different way to do things than things are usually done. Things are done by information. I'm not against information, but there's certain parts of this practice you can't do with information. I don't think you shouldn't have information. I'm all for it. The more information you have, the better. You can't do the Zen part for sure with information at all. It requires that you use the part of the mind that doesn't think. It's Dogen, who I'm going to read from, Dogen Senshi tonight, called it the backward step, or think the thoughtless thought. I was going to read you a little bit of his stuff, because of the people who wrote, and then I was also going to read you Maezumi Roshi. first teacher, he didn't write, these are from his talks, maybe we'll start there, or do both. Dogen wrote, Zen teachers don't write. They have their talks transcribed. My first book is basically talks transcribed too, but I also wrote it, both. And I may write now, but I do write, but that's the more normal way to do it. But let me give you a taste of what we're talking about here. Now this is very typical of how Maezumi Roshi would talk, so let me just read you this. From the beginning, the way is perfectly manifesting right here, always here as your life. Realization or attaining enlightenment is nothing but becoming aware of this fact. This direct and clear fact of our life as the intrinsically enlightened life is difficult to see. How can you practice most effectively in order to realize this? It is not a matter of whether you should practice shikantaza or koans, but rather how to practice effectively. When you work on a koan, is there an awareness of I am doing a koan? When you sit shikantaza, is there an awareness of I am doing shikantaza? If this is so, you need to take care of this, meaning not do that. When you work on koan, be koan. When you sit shikantaza, be shikantaza. Let your practice of koan or shikantaza be the zazen of the Buddha. Simply don't let yourself and Buddha be separate. Don't separate yourself from koan or yourself from shikantaza. Don't discriminate between yourself and realization, between your life and the intrinsically enlightened life. Sit in this way. This is very clear, see? Now, Maezumi is very interesting because this is really pretty much how he spoke, and English was really not his first language. He had a very good vocabulary for and concrete thinker for non-English speaking.